Hi everyone, Elsie Jensen here. Today we are making a curry cauliflower and eggplant soup with some chicken baguette sandwiches and some lemon poppy seed muffins. So let's start by getting our eggplant and our cauliflower cut up so that we can get it roasting in the oven, and then we will work on our muffins and get our soup kind of going here. So we can cut it up and then we'll put it on here. So I've got I've got an eggplant and my cauliflower. This is like the world's tiniest cauliflower. So I was like, it's a perfect sidekick in the soup. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to cube up my eggplant here. Just take off our tops and bottoms. And I'm going to keep the skin on and everything. And then we will kind of cube it up into nice little, like, simple pieces, like little bite-sized pieces. And then we'll dress everything up in some nice seasonings and toss it with some olive oil and roast it up. That way it has a nice kind of oven roasted flavor to it. Get these. And I will say one eggplant yields a lot of eggplant. I will say it's a pretty big vegetable here. But we'll get it done. But I do love a good eggplant. Like, you know, the dishes, there's so many different ways you can have it. One of my favorite ways is actually my grandfather used to make this dish when I would visit him in Spain. He would roast the eggplant. He'd wrap them up in aluminum foil, and he would roast them in the ashes in his little outdoor kitchen. And then he would scoop out their like guts and mix it with tahini and make this really delicious eggplant dip. And it was so good. You'd have it with a little baguette, and that was one of my favorite things he made. Okay, let's get our eggplant over here. We're going to season up both the eggplant and the cauliflower with the same spices. So I'll get this on there, and then we'll dice up our cauliflower and get that in there as well. Okay. I'm going to pull off our leaves here. Kind of get this working. Like I said, this is such a tiny little cauliflower. It's a little baby. Cut this little middle guy out. And then we're just going to kind of cube it up into smaller pieces because, again, it's going into our soup, so we don't want very large pieces of cauliflower, but good bite-sized pieces. Now, one thing with purple cauliflower, when you roast it up, it has a tendency to look black. When just like the purple just goes to looking black when it's roasted, but it will be delicious no matter what on there. Let's get these. And keep your little stalky chunks parts as well, because those will have great flavor and texture in your soup. So not just the florets. And even though it was a little guy, it sure did yield a good amount, which will kind of be perfect for our soup. Just making sure I don't have any pieces that are too big, because you don't want to have to get a fork out and a knife to eat your soup. Okay, let's get this on our baking sheet right here, and then I'll bring my baking sheet over here in just a second, and then we'll drizzle this with some olive oil and our spices, and we'll get it roasting up in the oven. Okay, where did I put my olive oils? Right over here. Okay, for this, I'm going to start on drizzle on my cauliflower first. An eggplant is like a sponge, so it's going to kind of soak it up really well. So when you're kind of coating it, make sure you give it a little squeeze to let it kind of come back out. We're going to put some onion powder on here, which will give it a nice savory flavor as well. And then curry powder. We're going to use a good amount. We're also going to be using it in our soup as well, but I want a good amount on our veggies so that they have that flavor, and the heat of the oven will bring out that curry flavor as well. So we're going to probably use about 1.5 teaspoons here. If your curry powder is older, you might need to use a little bit more because curry powder, I find, does dull out over time. We'll just add a little splash of paprika. Just a teeny amount. A little bit of oregano.
How was the fish last time?
Oh, it was delicious. It was really, really good. My oldest daughter loved it. She ate 3 fillets of it, which she's kind of my lightest. She's a very light eater, but she really, really liked it. So it was a hit. And it was like, had a really like light and flaky. Even though they were thinner fillets, it was delicious. Put a little bit of pepper. And then garlic salt. And then what we're going to do is just toss these all up and then spread them out. And we want all of these to have really great flavor. So here with the eggplant, I'm going to make sure I squeeze them almost similar to how I make croutons so that you don't have just like one piece of eggplant that's holding all of the olive oil. Here we go. And then the same with the cauliflower, we'll coat it up, and then we'll just kind of mix everything around. And then we'll spread these guys out so that they have as much space on our sheet pan as possible. And then we're going to let these roast up in the oven for about, I'm going to say, like 20 minutes. I have my oven preheated to 400 because that's what we're going to bake our lemon poppy seed muffins at. And so we want them to kind of crisp up, get a little touched kissed of golden brown on them. Again, the purple cauliflower tends to turn more blackish brown when it cooks, so don't be worried when it gets a little bit darker in color. I'll have it on the top, but when we put our muffins in, I'll bring it down. Before we start our muffins, I'm going to get my onions sauteing up, caramelizing for our soup, and then we'll work on those. So let me get that going because you want to bring that rich flavor out in here. Put in about a tablespoon of olive oil here. And then I'm going to be using, because these are kind of tiny onions, I'm going to use 2 of them because I want a good amount of onion in this soup, especially since I'm not going to be using celery today. So I want a bit more of those onion flavor in there, a little bit more aromatic vegetable in it. Get this guy. And kind of slice this off, peel this guy over. This guy's really tiny. And then we'll give a nice little kind of small dice up for it. So we have just lots of little bits of onions in our soup. Not really big chunks, more smaller. And we'll let them caramelize up and let their natural sweetness come out, which will be enhanced when we add that curry powder in because curry powder has a touch of natural sweetness to it. Here.
You have a question. Could you use celery salt?
You could definitely use celery salt if you wanted to. I actually have celery salt out here that I was going to use for a little bit on my chicken, and then I might use some in here in a little bit. Celery salt's like a great variety of so you have garlic salt out there, celery salt, that gives you some of those more aromatic flavors to it than just a plain salt. And I always kind of like that when you just want to add a little bit more oomph to something. Okay, we got our onions in here. Give this a nice little toss here, coat it up. And we're going to let these saute. I'm going to start my Dutch oven on a 6, and then once I start to hear this good snap crackle from the oil, I'll turn it down to about a 4. But let's start on our sourdough lemon poppy seed muffins. So yesterday I made my mini blueberry loaves, and my oldest came home and she goes, you know what? you really need to make lemon poppy seed muffins with the sugar on top. So I went through and I found some of the decorating sugar so I could make this for her because she has kind of been on a muffin craze recently. And normally she is not a muffin person. So I decided I will make her some. So we're going to start off with a 1/2 cup of our sourdough discard. Get it in here. And let me slide this Jacques over there. We're going to put it in our thing. There we go. And then we're going to add in 1 stick of melted butter, so a 1/2 cup of melted butter. And I always like to let my butter cool down just a little bit so that we're not putting scalding hot butter in there. And then 3/4 a cup of sour cream. So it's a very similar base to like our mini loaves, but what we're going to change is kind of our flavors that we're going to add into it. So 3/4 a cup of our sour cream. And I'm just going to eyeball this and see when I look like I've got about 3/4 a cup. This looks pretty good. And then I'm going to give this a good mix in, and then we'll add 1/4 cup of cream. Okay, Bruni. We're having such a beautiful day today. I spent most of this morning playing outside with Jack and Teddy before Teddy went off to school. And then Jack and I played outside, but it's such a nice day. It's like 70 degrees and so pretty. So I feel like lemon poppy seeds work well because it's like a springy, summery muffin, and it feels like that.
Marianne said she made your chicken shawarma and naan, and it was a hit.
Oh, good. I'm glad. I hope everybody, like, the naan is always, anything we do when I do naan in our house is like such a hit. So I'm glad because it is so good. And I'm glad you love the chicken shawarma. It's delicious. Okay, we've got our butter, our sour cream, and our sourdough discard mixed in here. And then we're going to add in our cream. We need 1/4 a cup of cream here. And so essentially the sour cream and the cream here kind of replaces your liquid that you add in to like your basic like muffin method. And it leaves it really, really moist, but without making it too liquid. And it's just delicious. So I need about 1/4 of a cup of our cream. And then I'll save a little bit of cream to brush over at the top of our muffins later, and we'll use some in our glaze. There. And then I'm starting to hear my onions kind of give their nice little crackle here. So I'm going to turn it down to a 4-ish, like a 3.5, 4. And give these a stir. And then we're just going to let them kind of caramelize on a lower heat, bring out their natural sweetness for that. So they'll add some great flavor to the base of our soup. Okay, let's add in our eggs. We need 2 eggs. So 1 and 2. We're going to give these a pop. That way they don't go swimming around in ours. And we'll mix the yolks in and the whole eggs in. And then once they're incorporated, we're going to add in our baking powder, baking soda, salt, and then we're going to add in vanilla, lemon zest, and lemon juice. And then our poppy seeds and sugar and all that jazz. Okay. I always just like to make sure that we get these eggs well mixed in here. Sometimes you get, an egg white that wants to swim around in here. And so just make sure you've got it mixed in well. Okay. Let's get these on here. We're going to do 2 teaspoons of baking powder. So 1, 2, and then a 1/2 teaspoon of baking soda. So both of these will work together to give these a nice pop in our muffin. And then we're going to do a teaspoon of salt, which is going to enhance the lemon flavor and the sweetness. And then let's give these a mix in. And then we'll add our vanilla, our lemon zest, our lemon juice, and our sugar. And then we'll finish off with our poppy seeds and our flour. There we go. Okay, so for this, we're going to use the zest. I'm going to actually use the zest from, I need about a tablespoon of lemon zest. So we're going to zest them first. I'm probably going to need about the zest from 2 lemons because these are kind of smaller ones. If you get one of those like Hulk size lemons, you can probably get away with just 1 on it. Now you're going to want finer zest versus, really big pieces of zest. So if you make sure you have a nice fine grater, I find a Parmesan cheese grater is really wonderful for zesting. And you want to get more of the nice kind of bright yellow versus the whiter parts of the lemon. The whiter parts have more of a riney flavor versus that lemon, kind of lemon oil flavor. So we're getting this, and we're going to add some fresh lemon juice. But again, most of the flavor is going to actually come from the lemon zest. The lemon juice in there adds a little bit, but it's really the lemon zest that gives you that bright lemon flavor. And then, of course, we're going to make a lemon glaze on top, which will give you a lot more lemon flavor. So we'll use the juice from one of these lemons for in the muffin, and then we'll save the juice for the other one for our glaze. Here we go. I'm just kind of grating all the way over, kind of covering it up. But we're getting there. Just about, again, a tablespoon of fresh lemon zest over the top of each one of these. And again, you do not want to use like pre-grated lemon zest, like dried out lemon zest. That stuff is rock hard and it doesn't have the right flavor to it. Once it dries out, it kind of changes its flavor. There we go. That should be about good. Let me grab a little. Make sure we get all of that. Perfect. Get a little knife over here. We'll cut this lemon in half and then we'll use the juice from this. So we're going to use a mixture of fresh lemon juice. So just the juice from this lemon, as well as a teaspoon of vanilla. The mixture of both the fresh lemon juice and the vanilla really works well. That vanilla gives you that kind of sweet, mellow flavor, but the lemon juice gives you, again, that nice lemony tart flavor. I don't like to use lemon extract on this.
Oh, Mary sent you.
Well, thank you, Mary. We appreciate that. Let me wash my hands real quick. Okay, and then let me get a teaspoon of lemon or of vanilla extract, not lemon extract. Lemon extract has a very, very strong fake lemon flavor to it, so I'm just not a fan of it. Let's mix these in. Lovely. And then while I have this right out, let's add in our poppy seeds. We're going to add in about a tablespoon of poppy seeds. A little bit of poppy seeds can go a long way. You feel like a tablespoon is not going to be nearly enough, but they really do spread out. So we've got our tablespoon of poppy seeds. We'll add those in there. And then before I mix it in, I'm going to add in my sugar as well. And then we can mix those both in at the same time. So we're going to add in a whole cup of granulated sugar. This is going to add our sweetness to our little muffins here. And then our last ingredient will be our flour, but we don't want to add that until the very end because we don't want to over mix. We want nice, light, and fluffy muffins. So we'll mix these in. And as you can see, our poppy seeds are mixing around and they're dispersing well throughout our batter. And you can see that every bite is definitely going to have plenty of lemon poppy seeds in it. Or not lemon poppy seeds, but poppy seeds in it. Let me slide this side. And now let's get our flour in here. We're going to use 2 cups of all-purpose flour. We'll mix it in until it's just barely combined. Again, we don't want to overmix because overmixing with a butter batter will lead to a stiffer muffin, and we want our muffins to be nice and light and fluffy. So 1 and 2.
Yoda sent you a gift.
Oh, well, thank you, Yo. We appreciate that. Here we go. And we'll get this mixed in here. Again, we're going to mix this until it is just barely incorporated. You want it to be lumpy and chunky. That way it will have nice and fluffy, like muffins at the end versus dense little rocks. Got to resist the urge to mix it smooth. And it's going to be a thick batter because it is a butter-based batter. Beautiful. Perfect. So this is what we want. I'm just going to make 1 big scoop underneath to make sure I don't have any pockets of flour or liquid underneath. Perfect. And that is the base for our muffins here. Delicious batter. Got a little piece on my finger. It was delicious. It's nice and lemony. I'm going to give this a nice little stir while we're over here. You can see our onions are starting to get the beginning processes of our caramelization. They're starting to get a little bit of our golden brown base on there. Okay, and let those start continue to caramelize up. And while we're doing that, let's get these guys in here. I managed to find another set of my brown ones. I've got I was going through kind of in the process, I just cleaned out my pantry. And I've got a lot of muffin little foil wrapper things and of all variation lines. And I realized I have jumbo muffin wrappers and I have a jumbo muffin pan, and I rarely make jumbo muffins, but now I feel like I need to because I have some. And I haven't made jumbo muffins in ages because jumbo muffins are just so big. It's like a commitment when you eat one. Let me get here. There's a little bit. There we go. We're going to spoon these guys into each one. Now with these, we are going to fill these up to the tippy top. So I'm going to put a nice big spoon in each muffin liner, but then I'm going to come back over with another spoonful. This recipe makes 12 wonderful muffins with a nice big bakery dome on it. And that's what everybody loves. Nobody buys a muffin for its bottom. They buy it for the top. Although it's funny, so it was a story my grandparents told me, but for the longest time, they always thought that my grandfather always thought that my grandmother loved the top of a bagel. And my grandmother thought that my grandfather always loved the bottom of the bagel. And so for 40 or 50 years, they always, when they would go, they would divide a bagel and they would give each other the other half. And it turns out that for those 40 years, they all preferred the other half. My grandfather preferred, the top, and my grandmother preferred the chewier bottom one. And they just gave each other because they thought the other person liked that for so long. And I always sit there and they didn't say anything about it. And it wasn't until, they finally just talked about it one time that they came to realize that they had been eating the wrong half of the bagel for so long, simply because they wanted to give the other one the one that they thought was the better half. And I always just think that's such a cute little love story between, my momo and my muffa from there. And it always makes me think of muffin tops. And I said, nobody would make that mistake with a muffin top because nobody likes the bottom of a muffin. Let's get these guys filled up in here. And then we're going to go through and I'm going to just make sure all of them are as evenly filled as possible. And then we'll dab a little cream over the top of each one. And then sprinkle with some sugar for this. But there we go. We got our muffins in. Now what we're going to do is we're just going to brush the top of these with a little bit of cream. That's going to give us this nice, lovely golden brown color when we bake. And because just like our blueberry mini loaves the other day, these are a very pale based muffin because you're just using granulated sugar in there and very light colored ingredients. So to give it this kind of golden brown color on the top, this cream will help out. So just a little dab. You don't need much. About a tablespoon is more than enough for all of these muffins. Here we go. And then just work my way around, and then we're going to sprinkle a little bit of sugar on there. We'll use less than a tablespoon for the entirety of the muffins as well. And that gives, again, just gives that top of that dome a little extra sweetness to it, which I think just makes it even nicer. Now we will make a lovely lemon glaze for it and then sprinkle it with some of our kind of decorating sugar at the top for an extra thing. But if you don't like the glaze or whatnot, these are also just great on their own. So just a little bit, a little sprinkle here. Again, it's hardly any, but it just adds that little extra sweetness to the top of your muffin. Okay. Let's go pop these in the oven. These are going to bake at 400 degrees for about 18 minutes. And then we'll check them, see if they need a minute or two. We'll give them a little love tap, but 18 is typically perfect for muffins. Mini loaves sometimes take a little bit longer. But you know what? It looks like these are just about perfect. So
you have a question? Did you use, so I can say this wrong, turbinado sugar?
You could definitely use turbinado sugar, which is more of like a raw form of sugar. I'm going to set my timer here. And to give you like that little crunch on it on the top of it, it works well. It will give you a browner color because it has a little bit of more of that molasses naturally in it. But yes, definitely could work on there. Now, as far as in the actual baked good, if you were going to subs that out, that would give you a slightly different flavor to the muffin as well if you were to completely sub it out and use it in there. So you would have some of that molasses flavor in the base of the muffin as well if you were to use it there. This is our roasted eggplant and cauliflower. As you see, I told you the purple cauliflower turns more black when you roast it on there, but it'll be lovely in our soup with our curry and our eggplant. I always just think, I'm like, oh, it'll be so pretty, but it always is just black when it roasts. Okay, let's get this guy on the road. Let's get our carrots in here, our garlic going. We'll add those vegetables in there once we get this good broth base. And then we're going to saute up our chicken here in a little bit to make these lovely little baguettes because we ate through half of our little sourdough baguettes last night. And so we have enough to make little sandwiches with them, which they were delicious. Even my son, who always claims he doesn't like sourdough, and he didn't realize they were soured at first, but he took a whole half of a baguette and was eating it, and he ate it happily, had no idea it was sourdough. And I'm always like, you like sourdough? And you know how I know he likes sourdough? Because when we go to the Cheesecake Factory, his favorite bread there is the sourdough bread, and he loves that bread. And I'm like, it's sourdough. It tastes just like a sourdough. But he thinks it's just a regular baguette. He just, he likes to fight. Here we go. Get our carrots here. Looks like we're going to have pretty much the whole rainbow. I've got white, orange, and purple, and I think that might be a yellow. It's a very muted yellow if it is. but they're not parsnips. They're carrots. And we'll get these chopped up, added to our onions that have a nice, beautiful caramelization to them. And then we're going to use probably the rest of our chicken stock that I made up the other day in our soup for this, which will go really well. Let's get these guys off. And I'm going to cut these tips off. And then I'm going to, for the big fatter ones, I'm going to quarter them up, and we'll have nice little smaller bits of carrots going in here. And this one can go just in half. Now, there really isn't much of a flavor difference between the different varieties of carrots. I will say that, the orange is actually naturally the sweetest carrot, which is why it's the most popular of the carrots. And the white being the least sweetest, but it's very, very mild in the flavor one on there. But it's fun to have. Get these last guys. Okay. We'll throw our carrots in here. We'll let them saute up for just a little bit. And I'm going to mince up some garlic. And then we're going to fillet up our chicken and season that and get it ready to saute.
You have a question. Did you ever take cooking classes?
I never took cooking classes ever. I'm self-taught. Everything I kind of learned was through, reading books, magazines, observation, just watching like the TV shows, and just anytime I wanted to learn how to make something, I just got in the kitchen. I would make it, and I would fail plenty of times before I would make it successfully, but I never gave up. And over the years, I've expanded my ability of things to cook. And I will say, cooking is one of those foundational skills. You don't just make one dish and you lose all those skills, or you don't know how to do it. Everything builds off of every other skill. So you can really use everything together to make so many different ones. And so it really builds off of each other. And so it's easier to pick up new dishes the more comfortable you get with cooking. And then the better your palate gets, you begin to understand what spices work well together, which vegetables work well together, and then it's much easier to improvise. In my earlier years, I was very much a follow a recipe, you know what I mean? And then over the years, I was like, I don't need a recipe anymore. And now I'm like, oh, I just need to know the basic ingredients, and then I can pretty much cook any dish. Except when it gets to that, there was that, I feel like it was mid 2000s, that the big like gastronomic kind of thing where they were doing all the crazy like science stuff in cooking. Now that stuff that's crazy. It's fun and delicious, but that's chemistry, and you actually have to know what you're doing with that.
Brenda sent you a gift, and is that a cast iron pot?
Yes, this is. Thank you, Brenda. And this is Staub. So it's cast iron, and it's like kind of a polished cast iron, but it does not have a enamel coating on it, which is nice because you don't have to be as careful as you would with the enamel coated cast iron pots on there. And it gives you more of that cast iron cooking on there, which I really like. I have a variety of my like Dutch ovens. I really love this. And one of the reasons I'm impartial to this pan is because it's green, and that's not like a real reason to love one dish more than another, but it's one I like it.
You get this question a lot. Do you teach your kids to cook?
I've taught them like several little bits and pieces of things throughout the time, and they have shown interest. I will say they're more interested in baking treats that they can eat on there versus like main dinner cooking. But I will say, when I was taking my son to for signing up for high school classes, he actually was like interested in taking some of the culinary arts classes at the high school. So I was actually kind of excited about that because I didn't realize how interested he was in it. And I would say, I'm going to just trim up some fat off of these guys. he has probably the best palate out of everyone in our family. Like he has a really good discerning taste and can taste like different notes in there, even better than I can at sometimes. And we've had some like chocolates that had different flavors in it, and he's able to pick it out really well. He's like one of those little like connoisseurs where he'll be, taste the coffee and he'll be like, oh, hints of a wheat notes and oat barrel and stored in vanilla, weird stuff like that, I know he doesn't sound like that. He could. He could. Let me wash my hands. You just, you picture them wearing like a monocle and their three-piece, suit. That's how I picture them describing it. Okay, we've got our chicken here. I'm going to actually steal a little bit of this lemon juice from just a little bit to put on their chicken to give it a little bit of acidity to kind of break through the natural. And luckily, this little bit had a little bit in there. Perfect. Just the natural acidity of the lemon juice will help break through the natural fat in the chicken, which will allow it to be more moist when we saute it up. So for our basic seasonings on here, we're going to keep it pretty simple. I'm going to do onion powder. And we're going to do kind of like a nice dry, almost a dry rub seasoning on these, but a good flavor base for it. Some oregano. And we're going to season both sides up. These are going to be for our sandwiches.
You have a question. Do you think you would ever do a mom and son cooking one?
Yeah, if he wanted to, I would definitely consider it. When it comes to like social media and kids, I always put it up to my kids whether they want to be on here. I'm never going to force them to be on there because it's whether they want to be out here in the real world for it. So if he really wanted to, I would definitely do it. Sometimes like Evie or whatnot will make an appearance here and there, but if he wanted to, I definitely would be up for it.
I'd have to zoom out a little bit. He's so much taller.
He is so much taller than me, and he does let me know that. I'm fairly tall. I'm like a little over 5'9", but he is over 6 foot. I think he has a doctor's appointment in like a month or so, and I think he's gonna be over 6'1" by then. So he's pretty tall.
Mary and Brenda sent you.
Oh, thank you, Mary and Brenda. We appreciate that. We're going to season up this other side of this chicken. Again, I want good flavor on it because this is what's going to go on our sandwiches, and I want this to have a nice pop of it. Some onion powder and some Mrs. Dash's table blend, which is kind of like an everything seasoning.
You've gotten this question a few times. Is there any food that you despise and that you refuse to cook?
I will say, you know what? Not really, because I love everything. Now, there are some things that I don't cook as often because my family does not. I will say my children and my husband do not like it. Like, I love Indian food, but they do not like it as much. They like the really basic, like I can do a chicken shawarma and they'll like that because it's just like me, but they don't love the sog and all the, delicious things.
That red chicken's good.
Yeah, the tandoori chicken. They like it if it's meat and with a little bit of spice on it. My oil's over here. So I will say there isn't anything. I would love to Ethiopian food. So good. It's the same thing. It's like I never get to go to those restaurants unless I have girls, night out with my friends. And then we're all like, let's find the most ethnic restaurant out there because we just love it. And all of my girls are like my friends. All their husbands are the same. They don't like it. So we're all like Ethiopian or Indian. Any of those things were so good. But no, you know what? I have to say the only thing I'm not a huge fan of are like beans, but like strict up beans dishes. I don't mind like a subtle bean, like especially like a cannellini bean. I don't mind those, but
puddings.
Yes, you're right. I don't like puddings or anything in a pudding pie or pumpkin pie. It's that texture. I'm a little bit strange with that texture. I don't like it. You can tell me how delicious it is, and it can have a great flavor, but I can't eat it. And I will pass up on, yeah, it is like chocolate mousses, puddings, yogurt, pumpkin pie, cheesecakes. I know cheesecake is part of it unless it's like 90% graham cracker crumb, which is why my key lime pie has to have so much graham cracker crumb crust to make it delicious. Okay, let's get our, before we add that in there, we're gonna make our seasoned base for our soup. We can get this going on here. So we've got our carrots and our onions and our garlic cooking up in here. We're gonna add some spices to this. It's gonna be a really simple soup, but it's gonna go with our sandwiches. We're gonna add a little bit of curry powder in here. We want the curry powder to get some direct heat on the bottom of our pan to really kind of blossom its flavor. We're gonna add about a teaspoon. Again, if your curry powder isn't fresh, I bought this like not even a month ago, so it's pretty strong in its flavor. But if it's not, if you don't use it a lot, you might need a little bit more because it does dull out. We're gonna do a little bit of paprika, about a half a teaspoon. And then I'm gonna add just a little bit of celery salt in here. About around a teaspoonish. Let's give this a nice little stir. And that curry powder is going to give, again, a lovely golden color to it. Now, I'm not adding as much because, again, our cauliflower and our eggplant that we have roasting right here is completely like coated in it. We've got our oil nice and toasty over here. So let's get our chicken heating up. We're going to give a nice saute on here. Beautiful. I've got it heating over. I'm going to do it right around a 6 so that it can get a nice quick hot sear on it. And then I'll flip it. And this will be for our sandwiches. Beautiful. We're going to use our chicken stock. The rest of our chicken stock that we made the other day, last week, on there. This will add great flavor to our soup, which will make it amazing. Now, you could definitely use a vegetable if you wanted to keep this completely like vegetarian. You could use a vegetable stock instead. I'm going to start with about a couple ladlefuls first, and then I'm going to kind of mix it around to kind of deglaze the bottom of my pan. Bring up those spices here. My dog is snoring so loud. He came outside and was playing with us outside, and I think he worked himself up into quite the snooze. So one thing, he's a little dog, but he is quite the snorer. He's a little snout, and that's why he snores so loud. Let's add a little bit more in here. Give this a nice mix up. Let me check my chicken. Again, we're going for a nice, you can see it's starting to get the kind of coloring beautiful. Nice quick hot sear on it. Gorgeous. I love how my pan was hotter on one side than the other. Perfect. Mix this in here.
What's the seasoning on the chicken?
So the seasoning on the chicken we use is Mrs. Dash's table blend, onion powder, which is what's giving you this nice kind of golden brown, darker brown coloring for it because it's caramelizing up. And then garlic salt, a little bit of fresh lemon juice, and black pepper. I'm going to add in the rest of my chicken stock here. Gorgeous. And then because this is a little bit more of a concentrate, I am going to add in a little bit of water as well, because when I made this, I reduced it down so that it was stronger in flavor. That way I don't have to keep it in as big of a container. But then I just can re-dilute it with a little bit of our liquid here. I bring my pan up here. We'll add a little bit at a time. And then we'll add in our eggplant, our roasted eggplant, and our cauliflower here in just a second so it can start to simmer. We'll let that come up to a nice little cooking point. Beautiful. Gorgeous. Lovely. Okay. Perfect. Once this comes to a boil, we'll add this eggplant in here and that cauliflower. But while we're waiting, I'm going to bring this over here.
And do you know what you're making for dinner yet?
I actually am going to make a brisket. I have a brisket set out, so I'm going to do a slow cooked brisket in the oven. So I'm going to allow it to cook for about 4 hours, and then we'll let it rest. And then I haven't decided what I'm going to do as my sides with the brisket, but we're going to have, I think that's definitely what we're going to do for dinner tonight as our protein. Okay, I'm going to slide this over here. We've got, these are our leftover little baguettes. But while we head over here, let's first go grab our muffins out. I'm going to turn off our chicken because it's just about ready, and then we will remove it from there and let it sit until we're ready to put it on our sandwich. But let's go get our muffins out of the oven. First, turn that off. I'm going to give them a little tap just to make sure if they're firm all the way. They feel nice and firm for the most part. I might do a minute. I'm going to rotate and do about 1 minute longer on that side. These look about perfect, but that side needs just a minute longer. I always say that front end of my oven's not quite as hot as the back end. This minute will go very, very fast. So by the time we walk over here and I take this chicken off, we'll walk right back over there. But always give your muffins a nice little tap, because if they have a little bit of a jiggle, make sure you put them right back in there, because you don't want them to come out and then sink in. You want them to keep that beautiful bakery dome on them, and you want to make sure they're cooked all the way through. And if you open up your oven and you know, it sits there, or you know, you added a bit more of one thing than the other, sometimes it just takes a little bit longer for it to cook. We've got our chicken. This is going to be for our sandwich. Let's grab this, because we're going to cut our little baguettes here open and just toast them on the inside. And then we'll make a glaze for our muffins once they come out. Grab my bread knife. See, told you by the time we walk back over here, they'll be ready. And it's really just about a minute more, and they'll be perfect. Now look at these gorgeous muffins, that beautiful, amazing dome on it, because again, that's what everybody loves on their muffin. Slide this right over here. But we've got our beautiful lemon poppy seed muffins here. The nice kind of slightly golden brown kiss from that cream that we melted over the top of them. And we'll make a lovely glaze here in a little bit and sprinkle them with some sugar afterwards. But we're going to let them cool down just a little bit so that glaze doesn't completely run off of them. I'm going to get this heating up so that we can just toast the insides of our baguettes here. Let me grab a little bit of butter right over here. And then we'll make up our sandwich real quick and finish up our soup. And we'll be ready here. So these are one of my favorite little sandwiches to do, is when you have a little baguette left over and you just kind of cut it in half. And these are sourdough baguettes, so they're nice and crusty, but you have all of that wonderful flavor inside of the sourdough. And you can see we've got that nice little sourdough bubble in here. And then these were our rosemary, black pepper, and garlic. Get them. And just want to make sure I cut them as evenly as I possibly can. It's like when you cut a bagel and then all of a sudden you've got a really thin top and a really thick bottom. Beautiful. And they're just so like soft, but you've got that wonderful chewy crust of your sourdough. So I'm going to add that on here. Looks like I grabbed a little bit of a blueberry with mine when I made blueberry muffins earlier today. Let me put that on there. So just a little bit, just to toast up the inside of each of these. And I'm just going to put them on my little griddle pan. And we're keeping these really simple. We've got our chicken that will go on here. And then our, we're going to do some Gouda, sliced tomatoes, red onion, and then I might grab some fresh basil. But just a delicious little sandwich. And always great to use up the leftovers that I have from the night before, which is always kind of my what I like to do. Turn that right there. Let's get our veggies into our soup so that these can kind of simmer for the last part here. This is our oven roasted cauliflower and eggplant that we coated with our curry powder, onion powder, garlic salt, and a little bit of paprika. We'll add this into our soup. But that oven roasted just gives you a nice kind of roasted veggie flavor to this. Pop that in there. Get all of these off. Perfect. And wonderful. Beautiful. We're going to let that simmer at nice and low. And then we'll add our spinach in at the very, very end. You never want to add your spinach in too soon because if you do, it wilts away to nothing. Beautiful. Our butter's crisping up nicely. I'll rotate that. Let's whip up let me grab a bowl for our glaze so that we can get that whipping up real quick. And then we can finish off our sandwiches. And that way we'll have that ready. So our glaze, it's going to be really, really simple. We will use juice from our lemon here for this, a splash of cream. But what we're going to do is we're going to mix our lemon juice with some of our powdered sugar first. And then we'll add in some cream and then more powdered sugar, because if you add in the cream and the lemon juice together right away, what happens is you will curdle your cream. The acidity of the lemon juice will curdle it. But if you mix it with the sugar, it will prevent that from happening. Turn that down now so it can finish toasting on its own. So we've got our fresh lemon juice. Let me grab my powdered sugar over here. And let's grab my whisk.
Question. How do you decide what baked goods you're going to make each day?
So this was actually from my daughter's suggestion last night. So she ate some of the blueberry mini loaves last night, and she goes, you know what you need to make? You need to make this, but with lemon and poppy seeds in it, and then do that sugar on top. And I was like, oh, you mean like a lemon poppy seed muffin? And she was like, yes, but you need to have the sugar on top. And so I was like, okay. And I was like, I'll make lemon poppy seed muffins today because I can do that. I had all the ingredients. So I kind of listen to what my kids are saying they want. And that's kind of what I decide I'm going to make. And then what I need to make to go in the kids' lunches as well. I'm going to put in about a tablespoon of cream now that I've got some sugar in here. And then we'll mix this in here. So I always like to have, in the kids' lunches or snacks, I always like to have one of their things be it, we're out of the cookies I made. So we'll have that. They can have lemon poppy seed muffins because they all kind of like that. I was deciding of making Rice Krispie treats, but I'll probably make that tomorrow for their lunches on there. But just something kind of, either a breakfasty or a snack type thing that we have. Or something kind of go through. Very rarely do I make it where it's just a straight out dessert. Most of the time I like it to serve a purpose as either a breakfast on the go for my early morning kiddos or that have to go out to school or to go in their lunches. Okay, let's Just mixing this up until it's got nice. We want it to be about the consistency of Elmer's glue. So just add a little powdered sugar at a time. You're going to use around a cup of it. But again, don't add too much in, little by little, until you get that nice consistency. And voila. We'll drizzle that in just a second, and then we'll sprinkle some of that sugar on top, because that's really what she was. She's like, you need the sugar, Mom. Got to have the sugar. Which is funny because she's normally not my muffin or my cake girl on there. Just gonna, let me get this. I don't want sugar on my sandwiches. There we go. Okay, let's get these guys assembled up here. Beautiful. Just about, I'll give them a little bit longer. While we're doing that, let's cut up our tomato, our red onion, and we'll get our chicken ready to pop on these sandwiches. Let me grab this. So we've got our nice little kind of fresh, let me wash I've got, oh, you know what? I'll just use this. I will say sometimes a serrated knife for cutting, works really well. And I don't have to clean it. So we've got our tomatoes. And then for a red onion, this is one where I'm always like, one red onion will last you forever, because I really only use it for salads and condiments, because when you cook red onions, they lose their flavor pretty quickly, and they kind of wilt up. So they're not great for cooking, but better for raw. I'm going to slice them nice and thin. That way I can have them on our sandwiches, give you that nice little bit of flavor without overpowering them. That should be more than enough. Again, a little goes a long way. Beautiful. They're just about ready here. Let's get our cheese, some Gouda, because I felt like Gouda was going to work well with the chicken. And then we will assemble here in just a second.
Do you ever soak your red onions to take some of the bite out?
Yes, sometimes I will do like a blanched red onion, or I'll do like a quick pickle on them for it, depending if I'm going to use them in like a taco or anything like that, which we love, like a pickled red onion. Those are so good on sandwiches too. And that I'll do, like, you just kind of put them in a boiling water really for like 30 seconds to a minute, and then you kind of take them out and then rinse them with the cool water, and then I'll put like a little bit of vinegar in there. So should be pretty good now. That should be enough. I think I sliced up enough for it. Okay, let's assemble these guys. Let's get our bottoms. Beautiful. We'll have those waiting. So I'm going to put our chicken kind of pieces on here. And try to put the bigger pieces on the bigger pieces of bread. And then we'll do our cheese on top. That way it can kind of get a little bit of a melting on there. And then we can do our veggies. Kind of nice. There we go. And add these thinly sliced red onions. And you can see a little bit will go a long way to add that nice little crunch to your sandwich and that little bit of onion flavor, but you don't need to go a whole lot. And I will say, just slice them thin. That's going to add that great flavor. And then some tomatoes. We'll do tomatoes on some of them, and then some we'll leave without tomatoes. And now we'll put our tops on. Beautiful. And then we're going to glaze our, I think we got to match up the right tops with the right ones, but we'll glaze our muffins and kind of finish up here. Look at these gorgeous sandwiches. Now, those are delicious on our homemade sourdough bread. Can't go wrong with that.
Do you post your recipes anywhere?
We do post all of our live videos to the link on our page, so you can always rewatch them and cook along with me again. For our members, we do send out some recipe cards a couple times a month. We just sent out some this past weekend with some of the recipes we've cooked up recently for it. And then we're working on our cookbook right now that will have several of the recipes that we've cooked over this last year that we've been kind of streaming here. I'm going to take a quick taste of my soup before we do our muffins and then serve up here. Delicious. It's got that nice curry and that cauliflower flavor to it. Just wonderful. Okay, let me bring these right over here so that we can glaze them. And then let's not forget the sugar. My daughter would be very, very sad if she didn't have the sugar on them. Okay, so we've got our nice kind of glaze. So we're going to do, this is again our nice lemon glaze over the top of them. You want it to let your muffins cool down just a little bit so that it doesn't completely run off. If they're just out of the oven, it will slide right off. You want it to run down but still cling onto it. Beautiful. Because you want it to be a glaze. And that's why I say the consistency of Elmer glue will allow it to melt over, but still keep a good consistency. As you can see, the first ones are melting nicely, so it thins out, not super thick. And then per my oldest request, must put, she said, the big chunks of sugar on the top. She first said salt, and I was like, ooh, that would not taste good with the salt on it. But the extra little decorating sugar that adds that little extra sweetness to the tartness is perfect. Here we go. Perfect. And those are going to be delicious. Okay, let's get our lunch served up here. Let me add our spinach, because again, I told you our last spinach is the last thing we add to our soup because we don't want it to wilt away to nothing. We're going to dump this in here. Give it a good stir. Spinach needs about 30 seconds to a minute to cook. So by the time I get my plate out, it will be ready. If you add it too soon, it will disappear to nothing in your soup. It will still be there, but it won't be pretty. It will be gone. You can see it's just instantly wilting away from the heat. And that's why I say add it at the very end, right before you serve, so it's still beautiful in your dish. And let's get ready to serve up. Okay, for lunch today, we have our homemade chicken sandwiches on our sourdough baguette. And these are our sourdough, rosemary, and black pepper baguettes with Gouda cheese, sauteed chicken, red onions, and tomato. And then we're going to serve that with our hearty curried roasted cauliflower and eggplant soup with carrots, onions, garlic, and curry powder, and then our lovely broth made using our homemade stock. And it's just going to be wonderful and fabulous. And then for a sweet treat at the very end, we have our homemade lemon poppy seed muffins with a crisp lemon glaze at the end, and then sprinkled with a little bit of decorating sugar for that little extra added sweetness. Well, guys, thank you so much for joining us here. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I try to do live cooking shows every single day, kind of show you what we're making for our family and hopefully teach you guys something along the way. Again, we do upload all of our videos to the link on our page, so if you ever want to recreate any of these recipes at home, you can just go to our page and search for what we made, our curried eggplant and cauliflower soup, our lemon poppy seed muffins or our lovely chicken baguette sandwich, and you can always watch and cook along with us again. We also have a link to our Amazon storefront that has all of our different cooking gear and gadgets in it. We've got our pans, our Hexagon griddle, knives, cutting boards, all the different things that we use in the kitchen there for you guys to check out. But again, thank you so much for joining us here. Don't forget to like and subscribe.